we need to spend more time singing. It's amazing to me as I'm reading through, I'm doing my devotions in the chronological Bible that I was given for Christmas, and it's interesting to see how often when the people wanted to make sure that God knew they were praising Him, they sang a song. It wasn't always the most well-constructed song, but they sang a song. I mean, some of the songs that you read, like after the Red Sea, the song that the Israelites sang, part of it is really good, and then part of it you're reading it and you're like, yeah, that would never make it on the radio. But they sang a song. I think that music is part of our lives because it's the sound of our soul. I think in everybody's soul there is music. Even people that don't, I'm one of those people that it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I need music going. I have the radio going, or I have and it drives my wife crazy. Like when we were driving down to Missouri, I had my iPod plugged in, and I was listening to it, and she kept turning it down because she wanted to talk, and I'm like, no, keep the music going, we can still talk. I just love having music going. She doesn't necessarily, but she's got music in her soul. How do I know this? Because if you have a conversation with her, and her dad is the same way, if you have a conversation with them, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, they can come up with a song. They can come up with a song that matches it. And so, I am saying all of this to say that it is such an important thing that we do when we come together, those moments when we can gather together in praise. Corporate praise is such an amazing thing. It has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about tonight, but it's such an important point. And maybe it's all to build up to this advertisement. 2 weeks from tonight, we will not be doing this. 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to have a hymn sing. Come on March 10th. It'll start at 5 o'clock. And we are going to sing those songs that have stood the test of time. Those songs that, without denigrating today's music, that I'm going to say that, I'm going to steal a line from Bob Seger, today's music ain't got the same soul. Just saying. There are just come and be a part of our hymn sing on the 10th, starting at 5 o'clock. And if the hymns aren't enough to get you there, then what's going to happen afterwards should be, bring a dessert to share. Because, well, nothing goes better with hymns than pie. And if you're Southern, then you know if someone brought a pecan pie or a key lime pie, so much the better. Just saying.
I think that was your hint over there.
Has absolutely nothing to do with what I wanted to talk about tonight. What I do want to talk about is in Exodus 19, verses 4 through 6, it says, and this is God talking to Moses and telling him what to say to the Israelites. It says, you yourself have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. Now the Bible says that this is 3 months to the day after the Israelites left Egypt. So 3 months to the day when God brought the Israelites out of Egypt, and they're out in the desert, and God is saying this to Moses. And it's been a tumultuous 3 months. I went through just to see what happened during this 3 months. Because, it's been 3 months, since Thanksgiving. What's happened in your life in 3 months? What kind of stuff has happened? For some of you, it's probably been a roller coaster ride that feels like it's out of control. But for other people, it's just, the same old, same old. But here's what happened to these guys in 3 months. They left Egypt. They found themselves with the Red Sea here and the Egyptian army here, trapped between a rock and a hard place, and God separated the water and they walked across. If that was the only thing that happened in a 3 month period, that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? After that, 3 days later, 3 days after God separated the Red Sea and let the Israelites go through, and then he drowned the Egyptian army. 3 days later, they hadn't had anything to drink. They were wandering around in the desert, and they found this spring, and they were upset because the spring was bitter. And they called the place Marah. And they were complaining. And God said to Moses, take this stick over here and throw it in the water. And he did, and the water went from bitter to drinkable. That's in a week. In a week, God separated the Red Sea, let the Israelites go across. Then he gave them water. Then they were wandering around and they apparently ran out of food. And they were hungry. And God started providing manna and quail for them to eat. And then they were thirsty again. They ran out of water. And God told Moses, take your staff and strike this stick. Strike this rock. And he did, and water started pouring out of the rock. And then the Amalekites decided they were going to attack Israel. And this is one of the coolest battles in the whole Bible. Because the Israelites are fighting, and they're doing really good as long as Moses has his hands up in the air. But when Moses' hands start to droop, because I don't know about you guys, but when you hold your hands up for a long time, don't your shoulders start to get tired? And you start like this, and then it's 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 down here. Well, when Moses' hands drooped, the Israelites were losing. So a guy named Hur and a guy named Aaron figured out what was going on, and they said, here, Moses, you have a seat on this rock, and they held his hands up. And the Israelites won. They won this battle. And then Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, comes to visit. And Moses tells him everything that has happened over the space of 2.5 months or so. And he's completely impressed with what's going on. And then he's watching as Moses is going about his work, and he sees that all of the people are bringing all of their problems to Moses. And Jethro says to him, this is a bad idea. This is not going to work like this. You're going to burn yourself out. Try this. And Jethro says, set up a system of judges. And they can bring the problems to these judges. And if there's a really bad problem, those judges can bring the problem to you. And Moses said, okay, that's a great idea. And they did that. This was all in the space of 3 months. So what have you done in the last 3 months? Just checking. It's a very busy 3 months. And now God is talking to Moses from the mountain. And he says, you yourself have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. God says to Moses, I have a plan. I have a plan for you. This is what I want you to be. This is what I want you to do. But there's a little word there that we need to notice. Do you ever notice that some of the most powerful words in our language are really little words? And they say that the longest word in the English language is anti-disestablishmentarianism. Anybody know what that means?
It's some kind of movement.
Yeah, it's against the disestablishment of the church. So we are anti-disestablishmentarianism people. Yes, that's what we are, anti-disestablishmentarianists, because we are against the disestablishment of the church. But you know what? That's not a very powerful word. It's a big word. But there's a very powerful little 2-letter word in what God says. If. God doesn't say to the Israelites, I am going to make you into my kingdom of priests. I'm going to make you into my holy nation. He says, if you will obey what I told you to do, if you do this, then this will be the result. It's a natural consequence of the behavior. It's a natural thing that was going to happen. You guys do this. Do what I told you to do. Follow my commands. And then you will become my priests. You will become my holy nation. That's pretty cool. God told them to get ready. In verses 9 through 12, God said to Moses, behold, I'm coming to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may also believe you forever. When Moses told the words to the people of the land, the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready for the third day. For on the third day, the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people, and you shall set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. God told them to consecrate themselves. Set themselves apart. Be different. Don't live like the other people around. Israel was never supposed to be like any of the other kingdoms. And that's why in 1 Samuel, when the people go to Samuel and they say, give us a king, and Samuel is angry God comes to him and he says, do what the people want. It's not you that they're rejecting, it's me. Because rather than be different like God wanted them to be, they chose to be the same. They chose to be just like all the rest. But God told them to live differently. He told them to wash their garments. They've been walking around in the desert for 3 months wearing a robe. The robe probably needed to be washed a little bit. Probably had a little bit of stench on it, just saying. They were supposed to take time to wash and clean up. God gave them limits for how to worship him. It's not a free-for-all. God said here and not here. There and not there. He set parameters. Then God told them how to live. And that's what the rest of chapter 19 and 20 and 21 are all about. The Ten Commandments are in there. Some of the beginnings of the Levitical law are in there. God was telling them how to live. So what does it matter? Why does it matter to us? 5,000 years later. Why does it matter? I'll tell you why it matters. Because 2,000 years ago, Peter was writing. And he borrowed pretty liberally from what God said to Moses. And he applied it to believers. In his first letter, in 1 Peter, Peter lays out first that God has brought us safely to this point. Which, remember what God said? God said, I took you out of Egypt and I brought you safely here. Well, now Peter is making the point that God has brought us safely here. In 1 Peter 1, verses 3 through 5, he says this, Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an undefiled and unfaded, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. That's a mouthful. But what it basically says is, God brought us safely through. God has brought us safely to this point. And whether we agree with the Calvinist theology or not, there is nobody that can say that they are Christians because they chose God before God chose them. Every one of us were chosen by God. Now, it's fair to say that he chooses everybody, and we respond. But he made the first move. We didn't. We didn't even know there was a move to make, and he had already made it. And he's brought us safely through. And then Peter called us to live differently than the world. In verses 13 through 16, he said this, Therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Holy means to be set apart or different. We are supposed to be different than the world. We're supposed to be different. The way that we act is supposed to be different. The way that we think is supposed to be different. The things that we do is supposed to be different. If we look at our lives and there's not much different between us and the world, then there's something that's not right. We have short-circuited somewhere. We are meant to be different. I have, as the girls were growing up, one of the things that we did together was watch those ridiculous teenage girl coming-of-age movies. And there was one, I don't remember the title of it, but you do, I'm sure. It's that Amanda Bynes one. What a Girl Wants, that's it. And there's a scene where she is out and she's learning how to live in English culture. And she's trying so hard to fit in, and the guy that's teaching her looks at her and he says, "There's one thing I don't understand." He says, "Why are you trying so hard to fit in when you were made to stand out?" We were made to stand out. How did Jesus describe us in the Sermon on the Mount? We are a city on a hill. You know what the amazing thing about a city on a hill is? You can see it. No matter where you are, you can see it. We are a light. You know what the funny thing about a light is? It doesn't matter how dark it is, you can see a light. We're meant to stick out. We're meant to be different. That's what it means to be holy. I've heard the phrase that we use sometimes is to be in the world but not of the world. And people say, well, what does that mean? How can you do that? Well, that means that even though we live in this world, we understand that our citizenship is in heaven. And we understand that we live and we respond to God's law, not man's law. That's what it means to be in the world, but not of the world. It's kind of like what I was talking about this morning. What's important to God is what's important to us. Not the other way around. Not what's important to us is what's important to God. But what's important to God is what's important to us. We need to be washed so we can be purified. In verse 22, Peter said this, "Having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth for a sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly from a pure heart." In Revelation 21, I think it's Revelation 21, it talks about those people who are citizens of heaven who have had their robes purified. And they are able to go in, they've had their robes washed. And they go in. While on the outside are the immoral, the idolaters, it even goes so far as to say the cowards. We're supposed to be different, we're supposed to be clean. And we need to come to Him correctly. And I don't mean, I am not saying that there is a liturgy that we have to follow. And we have to do this, and we have to sing one hymn and 4 choruses. Otherwise, it's not proper worship. You know what? It's proper worship if we sing 4 hymns and 1 chorus. It's proper worship if we sing 5 choruses. It has nothing to do with the type of music that we're singing. It has to do with the condition of our heart. And what we are thinking as we're singing. What is it that we are paying attention to? Are we giving our attention to Christ? Or are we putting on a show? Or are we just going through the motions? We need to come to him with true worship. That's what it means. When we say lay down your life, worship means lay down your life. It truly is. If you study worship throughout the Bible, what you'll come up with is the word is a conglomeration of Hebrew words, one of which means kowtow. The idea where you're bowing down completely before someone who has supreme authority. And you're presenting yourself to them. And that's what we do when we worship. We lay our life down. We bow down before God, the Supreme One. We come to him correctly, which again is not about technique, it's about attitude. And the reason for that is this, because in verses 9 and 10 of chapter 2, Peter says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." God said to Moses, if you will do what I say, then you will be my holy nation. You will be my nation of priests. Peter says, we are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. I love the King James because King James captures that sense of holiness that means different. And King James says we are a peculiar people. Some of us much more peculiar than others. But we are a peculiar people. And if we will live the life that God has called us to live, we'll be his representative on earth. We'll be his representative people. And people will be able to look at us and they'll be able to see a representation of Christ that is compelling. And how do I know that this is true? Because in Acts 2 it says, and God added to their number daily. And in Acts 4 it says, and God added to their number daily. People were seeing how those early Christians were living, and they wanted to be a part of it. Why did they want to run away from us? What are we doing wrong? Maybe it's because we get our agenda messed up in it. We get our political views messed up in it. We get our thoughts, our wants, our desires messed up in it. And instead of listening to what God wants and doing what God wants, we do what we want. We're supposed to be a nation of priests. Priests are the representatives of the deity. That's what we're supposed to be. That's what we're called to be. This is not even, it would be kind of nice if some of us got to be this. This is what we're all supposed to be. Every last one of us is supposed to be this. And yet we have a world that says Christians are bigots, hateful, mean, spiteful. Some of that we need to expect. Some of that is going to happen because Jesus said it really clearly. If the world hated me, the world is going to hate you too. So yeah, the world is going to hate us, and the world is going to look at us, and the world is going to be repelled by us because we are the antithesis of what they are. It's supposed to be that way to an extent, but to a much bigger extent, they're supposed to see us, and it's supposed to be compelling. It's supposed to draw them. It's supposed to make them wonder why we're different. Oh, we're still going to get persecuted. Guess what? We don't get out of that promise. We're going to get persecuted. People are going to call us names. They're going to throw things at us. They're going to throw false accusations at us. These things are going to happen. But we're supposed to live our life in such a way that when they do, everybody else looks and says, yeah, that's not true. What you're saying about them isn't true. That's not how it works. That's not what they did there. That's not who they are. Do we live like that? Is that how we live? Sometimes I feel like I fall far short. How about you? Let's pray. Let's stand. In fact, let's all come forward. Lord, you didn't make a mistake when you said, this is what I want you to be. This is who I want you to be. This is what I want the world to see when they look at you. You were not mistaken. And Lord, for the times when we fall short, for the times when we don't measure up to what you have said we should be, forgive us. Lord, please forgive us. Cleanse us. That we would be able to be who you've called us to be. You inspired Peter to take your words to the Israelites as they were in the desert and to apply them to all Christians everywhere. We are meant to be a royal priesthood. We are meant to be a holy nation. Holy Spirit, go through each of us. Sift through our lives. Convict us. Those places where we fall short. Encourage us in those places where we're doing right. That we would continue to grow, to be exactly what you intended for us to be. Lord, that we would be witnesses that are compelling. That people would see us in whatever situation they see us in, and they would see the way that we respond and the way that we react, and it would make them curious. That they would ask, why we're able to respond like that. Why we don't get angry, or why we don't seek revenge, or why we don't strike back. And Lord, may we remember to always be ready in those moments to give a reason for the hope that we have. Lord, that we would effectively point people to you. You are not willing that any should perish. And you've chosen us as your tool to reach them. Lord, let us be up to ready for the task. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. We love you. We praise you. We give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. pour yourself so freely into our lives. As we get ready to go from this place, Lord, help us all to remember what it is that you've called us to be. Help us all to reach out, open ourselves up, that the Holy Spirit would reign in us and through us. Empower us to be your witness in every circumstance, in every situation. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. We do love you. We do praise you. we do give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a good week. See you on Wednesday.